Hello, welcome to another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Jeff, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. Sal, yourself?
Awesome.
What you got for us?
Well, today we have Brian Scheid with us. We're going to talk about farm safety.
Uh-oh.
But before we get into farm safety, the question of the day. This may be a hard one. Because I put parameters on this. What is the funniest farm or work accident or safety violation that you've witnessed or experienced? But let's say non-injury and no significant loss of property. Maybe there's a little loss of property, but no significant loss of property. So we'll keep it light.
You didn't say anything about I couldn't bring up dogs again.
No.
No, yeah, no dogs for you, Brian.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, no dogs.
Dog stories.
That's property or life. Yeah.
So I've got two. First one didn't involve the second one. I'm going to kind of tell on myself a little bit, but first one was actually driving by a group of people working on a house, and actually had a skid loader with a bucket and had a ladder. So they had the bucket raised up and then a ladder inside the bucket.
Oh, boy.
Leaned up against the building. So that was a good one.
In a skid steer?
Yes.
What did he crawl out of was there nobody in the skid steer, which means that he got out to go get?
There was nobody in the skid steer, so he probably got out.
Oh my gosh.
Climbed up the side of the skid steer.
Oh,
I don't know.
Under the bucket.
I didn't stick around.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a do not. So what's your other one? You said you got two of them?
Yeah, the second one I tell myself, and I'll go back to 1991. So it was my first job out of college. I worked for a ag retailer southeast of Terre Haute. Well, one of my first jobs was going to spread lime, was actually in Illinois off of Highway 1. So not too far in the state of Illinois on some reclaim ground. Of course, back then we didn't have GPS. The manager at the time just gave me a copy of a map and circled the field. I thought, well, the easiest way to get here is just go up 46, hit I-70. You can go to Highway 1.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
you got on the interstate?
Yep, taking a floater across I-70. That was
yeah.
At
so
30,
then
at 34 miles an hour.
34, and we'll talk about SMVs later.
Yeah.
Slow moving
Oh,
vehicles.
no.
But the other two guys were in another floater pulling the loader behind, and they want to know why I beat them by 20 or 30 minutes.
Did nobody say anything?
They did when I got there. No one told me before I left, don't take Interstate 70 over to Highway 1 in Illinois.
I bet you were popular on the interstate, weren't you?
Oh, I'd say about 21 years old. I didn't care. I thought I looked cool behind the wheel of that thing. So.
Yeah.
Obviously, the troopers didn't catch you, so.
No.
This is back before cell phones.
Yep.
That's
that
good.
would have been before cell phones.
Well, Jeff, you probably got the stories.
Yeah, I think we had a guy that worked for my family's retail plant when I was growing up, and we were all liquid. And this guy was a pretty big guy, and we were transferring something into like a nurse tank, and he said he could hold the hose, and we're like, no. Yeah. So he's trying to fill it over the top, and so they fired it up, and I just remember anybody in proximity got a bath because he couldn't hold it, even as big as man as he was, and knocked him off the side of the nurse wagon.
No.
Nobody got hurt, but it was like, okay, that's why we don't do that.
By the time you got the pump turned off, everything was all shiny.
Yeah. Well, and the guy on the pump, he knew that he couldn't hold it. It was kind of like, okay, we're going to have to prove our point. But the guy was soaked by the time he got done and just knocked off the wagon. Got a hose flipping around out there.
Did you get soaked?
I was standing back. I did get sprayed a little bit, but it was comical.
Jeez. Yeah. No, you can't hold this.
No, that's why we hook them up.
Yeah. That's why they have connections.
Yeah.
I'll tell on myself. I was a kid, probably, fifth grade or something, or fourth or fifth grade. But it was over at my grandpa's, and we were back then. Nobody had semi trucks. You had those little giant gravity bed wagons to haul grain in, and so we were combining back there, and of course we had to bring the wagons back through the woods and along a pond bank where the fill was, across the fill, and then back through the woods and down the hill. And anyway, they had the doubles hooked up. Well, I thought I was a pretty good tractor driver, and I was like, I can take these in. And had the 1066, which was just, I felt like King Kong when I was up on top of that one, right? And the things we did as kids, I would never let a kid do today, right? But my dad, before I left with the wagons, said, don't cut it too short going around the pond. Okay, I was like, all right, okay. Then my uncle yelled at me, make sure you don't cut it too short going around the pond. Got two little giant wagons back there. That's okay. I got it. Okay. I never knew what cut it too short meant.
You do now, though.
I do now. And so, yeah.
The old guys do know what they're talking about.
They do know what they're talking about. And so, got, of course, going on to the fill, and for first wagon was fine, but I cut it too short. And the second wagon, it didn't spill completely, but it just got off in there, and I stopped because I saw it, and I went back and got Dad. I was like, I think I cut it too short. And he got it out. It just spilled a little bit of corn in the pond, but he got it out without
fish food.
Yeah, the catfish appreciate.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciated it. But that was my violation where nobody was hurt too bad, except my pride as a young man. So,
oh yeah, because they don't want to admit that they know what they're talking about.
No, I'd hate to ask what that
age.
meant. Yeah. Well, Brian, we're going to talk about farm safety, and this is a topic coming out of the spring of this year. Of course, spring and fall, we have a lot of farm equipment on the roads, but just some of the things that farm safety topics for our listeners. I guess there's two things. One is the people that are in the machinery, and then there's everybody else that's not in the machinery, and what should they know and be aware of. So just farm safety topics, maybe start with equipment safety and as we're moving this equipment down the road, what's some things we ought to know about?
Well, I think, of course, the number one cause of fatalities in the United States and in Indiana is rollovers.
Did not know that.
Yep. And, every year we hear of somebody getting trapped underneath the tractor or rolling over, falling off, having the equipment run over them. So that's a big issue.
Bush hogging with the tricycle.
Yep. And tractors by nature have, even you take our application equipment as well, even though some of them have wide, but tractors by nature have a narrow wheelbase compared to their center of gravity, unless they're especially made. We see, people out mowing roadside crews, they've got the big wide wheelbase tractors that they're using, but conventional ones that we have, like you say, some of even the tricycle ones that are out, in these barns and things that farmers are using to mow roadside ditches, and lots of accidents from those.
And they happen so fast. I think probably every farm boy out there has experienced, just how quick an accident happens, or something will happen, and you kind of get that wake up call. It's like, wow, I didn't get hurt that time, but that happened way faster than what I was expecting. And
well, and those roll cages are something that, that don't try to make one of those at home. It's I think we're all, all of us that grew up on farms and around this industry are pretty handy, making things and, constructing stuff that, don't try to make those themselves, because they're specified by the, manufacturer to handle the weight, and we just can't design those ourselves.
So I didn't know that the rollover was the number one. I did not know that, but it makes sense when you're bush hogging and you're on a pond bank or a ditch bank or something, and you're about as far as you want to go anyway, and then that's when you hit a hole or a ditch, and then you, like you said, it just happens so fast.
Yeah, that's where you get wheel spin, and all of a sudden it bites, and then when it does, it's going somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you don't know how soft it is in that shoulder, or inside that ditch.
Yeah.
So conditions can change really quick of what you can't see with tall grass and, washouts within the ditch. And so there's,
you don't have to be on a bank. It'll just be a washout that's hidden in there. Yep. Or sinkholes.
Yeah. Tile holes. And
I think just in our area, Jeff, I think we've had 2 this spring.
Yeah.
Tractor rollovers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a big problem.
So that's something to obviously those rollover cages, which all the new tractors come with those now, right?
Yeah, depending on the horsepower.
Depending on the horsepower.
Size of the tractor.
Yeah.
But.
And then the seat belts is something we'd never wear on a tractor, but
No, but you should. And we talked about tile holes and washouts, and, even talk about custom applicators, or even, farmers doing their own application. And we've got all the GPS and the auto steer and all this stuff. And you can, do other things while you're applying, but you take your eyes off the field, and especially if you're in a no-till situation and you hit a washout or a sinkhole, and that can give you a heck of a headache if you're not strapped in.
Yeah.
Other things about the tractors, I mean, obviously, we're on the farm. It's just the power takeoffs.
The biggest thing to say with power takeoffs, of course, we deal with, you think anything spinning, gearboxes.
That's true. Yeah.
Air compressors have got the, belts and wheels on them. Anything that's got something spinning, but PTO shafts, make sure, loose clothing is a no-no around PTOs, as well as there's been a lot of instances of scalping, the long hair with,
Oh my gosh.
getting PTO shafts. So make sure you're watching, and it's, Jeff, you kind of started on that a minute ago. Those things happen quick.
Yeah.
Because they're, you don't know that or don't think you're close to them, and all of a sudden you're into them and it pulls you in.
Yep.
I think we had a ex-employee, or not ex-employee, but he's passed, a salesman at Old White River, that he had a run in with a PTO shaft, and
Scary.
well, I don't want to say on here, but it ripped his testicle off.
Okay.
Stepping over the PTO shaft.
Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
what you want to cut out or leave in, but yes, he went to step over a PTO and got caught in it.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I think I just tell you, there's so many times that we get in a hurry, and instead of walking around, I just need to step over there real quick and do that. And like I said, it's just, next thing you know, something happens. I've had friends before that, it's cool. It's in the fall and stuff, and they've got just that flannel shirt unbuttoned and hanging loose. And I know one friend that got it caught in a PTO, and he said it ripped that shirt off of him so fast. He said luckily it was an older shirt, so it was, the threads were weak enough, I guess. And he said
Thank
in the
goodness
blink
it
of an eye.
did.
Yeah.
Well, it's a critical term that we talk about all the time in our industry, and any industry, is lockout, tagout. And so, you talked about even though the people that might not be on the equipment, when we talk about lockout, tagout, that's making sure that all the power is cut to that part that's going to move. I mean, it's just that simple. So if you're working on a PTO, you're working on a bush hog, and you're changing blades, doing something like that, making sure that the keys to the tractor are nowhere to be found but except yourself. I mean, it's just simple as that. And it could be working on just the tractor behind it. Somebody hops on it, starts it up, and goes to back it out of the shop and doesn't know you're underneath it. So,
Wow. Yeah. Those things like that, you just don't think about.
locking out the equipment, make sure that no one else can start it up or move it except the person working on it.
Yeah, that's I know a guy that got and just a few years ago got ran over and killed by a fertilizer, basically as a big fertilizer spreader buggy, pull type, and hired hand spreading. He was loading him, and the hired hand went to pull away, didn't know that he had stepped in. I don't know what he was doing, if he was adjusting something, but pulled away, ran over. Didn't even know he did it until
Oh
he
my
came back.
goodness.
So it's just all that kind of stuff. Just when you're working with somebody, you need to just look around, see where they're at before you take off. So
Yeah. Being in a skid steer always bothers me because it's so
a lot of
limited.
blind spots.
A lot of blind spots, and just backing up, and you're out there working, and there should be no one around you, but people don't realize they come up to a piece of machinery like that's moving, and they think you can see them, but you just can't.
Yeah, I think especially when you got little kids on a farm.
Oh, that's terrifying.
They want to come see what you're doing.
Yeah.
You think they're in the house. It's just, it scares you to death. The thoughts. And like I said, there's a lot of blind spots, especially on a skid loader.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see.
What about on the road? As we get this large equipment out on the road, I mean, what's some of the I know they've made a lot of improvements with lights, kind of the flashing lights now. Seems like all the new equipment has that. What else can we do on the road?
So I think the main thing is just being aware. I think everybody gets in such a hurry and tries to multitask as you're driving and just can't do that. Just always have to be aware of surroundings. I think the critical, I with application equipment, for other people that are following that application equipment, you need to, stay back so that you can react to other things that happen. Just because they're going slow doesn't mean that you can follow closer. With that kind of equipment on the road, with heavy, large farm equipment or application equipment, you need to stay back so you have time to react to what they see and what they have, because the person behind you may not be. They might not be paying attention.
Oh,
I think
wow.
there's some videos going around right now of people doing the challenges of driving underneath the Haggies.
Oh no.
So I think that, unfortunately, I think TikTok has brought that phenomenon back. So,
Oh my.
I think the other thing, and I saw this morning coming over, equipment on the road, and they've got their flashers going, and that's great. But I think the non-ag public, they don't pay attention to when. So this guy was turning left off the highway. He's got his turn signal on. The flashing light is showing that on the back of the rig. But there was a guy behind me that wanted to try to pass, and
Oh my.
so I don't think they understand that they do have turn signals, but after they've been going down the road for a mile flashing, they're not paying attention to that. They're just like, okay, I've got a chance to pass. And this guy was going to turn left, and nothing happened. It was, the guy came back in, the equipment got pulled off, and it was fine. But there was a lot of equipment moving this morning on my way over. I saw a couple of hay binds coming up the hill.
I passed the same ones.
Yeah, they had quite a line of traffic behind them, and I'm just like, oh, see, as soon as they get into a passing zone, everybody's going to be whipping out there. So,
and that is knock on wood. I haven't had or been aware of any this year, but usually a couple times a year we'll have that same situation where somebody will go to pass an piece of application equipment that they've been behind for a long time, and they see the lights flashing, and all of a sudden, if they're turning left, the one on the right stays solid and the one on the left stays flashing, and they're just not.
No, they don't pay attention to that.
Not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Or they see equipment coming, and a lot of this equipment will move down the road pretty good, but cars will pull out in front of them. And we had a spreader get hit earlier this year. I'm sure somebody was just like, well, I don't want to be behind him.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so, they pull out in front. They don't realize how quick they actually are moving. So,
well, for our applicators and farmers as well, be sure to keep that SMV sign clear. They can get dusty and covered up pretty quick, especially as it early in the morning gets towards the evening that it's all covered in dust. You really can't tell what it is, especially if they're meant to illuminate when lights hit it. So
Yeah. Even the daytime running lights, kind of flash them up there a little bit. So, and the other thing we have is it's kind of on-farm products as fertilizer. We got pesticides and fertilizers that we have. What should we make sure we're conscious of those?
keep them locked up.
Keep them locked up.
Can't say that enough. Some of the things that we use are, they are poisonous, and kids can be curious. So even just for your own safety at home, make sure they're kept locked up, and make sure they're in the proper container.
In the jug they came in.
In the jug they came in, because not only can that be a health hazard, you need to hope that no one would pick up anything and drink out of it or do something like that. But most time that happens if take a Roundup jug and turn it into a water bottle after it's empty. But anyway, that most thing that happened with the container is that you pick up the wrong one and it goes on the wrong crop, wrong field. That's a big cause of crop claims is wrong product, wrong field. So make sure you keep them in the jug they're meant to be in.
Make sure they're labeled. Make sure they're marked clearly, and keep them secure. That's a good.
Yeah, keep them locked up.
Yeah, a lot of times we just park the trucks out and around the farm and don't even think about access to the. I mean, the valves are all right there, and everything's pretty easy to get to.
Yeah, and make sure we're reading the label. Make sure we're wearing the proper personal protective equipment. And there's some that most pesticides are your standard splash goggles and gloves. Neoprene gloves, but there are a few of them that take respirators if you're using an open system. I mean, the best example is gramoxone. Gramoxone requires a respirator if you're using an open system. It's, as we all been around it, it's pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah. And they've changed a lot of that now into a closed system. Of course, the way we handle it goes right from bulk right through into the loadout. But there's a lot of things on the farm, a lot of things we never think about. Equipment, big equipment, excavators, dozers, tractors. And, I tell the interns, that's the first safety lecture I tell them is that, there's a lot of big stuff that's running around these lots and, don't ever assume they can see you.
Well, I think the key take home is everybody just needs to just slow down that extra minute it takes to do something safely, or so you're not laying in a hospital bed with a lot of free time on your hands all of a sudden. So it just takes an extra minute sometime to do it the right way.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of reading, look at those key areas of the label.
Yeah. I do think our pesticide safety, that's been good. I mean, the farm safety, I think that gets covered every year. For the most part, it seems like we get fairly good education on those things that have to have licenses. What we don't get education on is just on the equipment itself a lot of times, and then you said read the manual or read the label. A lot of us don't read the manual when we get something. We turn it on and go, right? So, but that's about all I got. Anything else on safety?
No, I just it's good reminders for everybody to stay safe out there, because we don't want to hear about these accidents.
No, everybody stay safe and take that little extra, just that couple minutes.
Yep.
Especially on the road, a lot of folks don't have any idea about farm equipment. They have no idea about what it is. All they know it's in the way, and they want to get around it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of patience left anymore.
No,
especially when it comes to driving.
And one thing I did want to mention, we are into summer now, and some of these grain bins are going to be getting empty and getting prepared for new crop this fall. Just grain bin safety is just at utmost. That's key. There's so many each year that have engulfment and entrapment issues that we aren't entering grain bins that we shouldn't be. And that's basically, if you see product in there, you've got to have a buddy, and you've got to be tied off, and you've got to be sure. There's just so many that crest over and step in and get engulfed. So be sure to just take that little extra time to observe and evaluate the whole situation before you start to enter a grain bin.
Yep.
Good advice.
All right. Well, that's safety tips from some farm safety, and you find lots of resources online. And if you have any questions, you can call us or get hold of us at premierag.com.
Sure, be glad to help.
All right. That's another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Thank you all very much.